Welcome in to the Zone Heads podcast. I'm Brandon. He's Zach. The StreamYard account that we're using says an error occurred as I'm trying to go live. Now, full disclosure here, I'm looking out the window and it's looking pretty gnarly out there here in Central Florida. I don't know what you're dealing with over there on the Tampa side, but we have tornado warnings over here. I got one of those really loud alarms that went off on my phone. But before we dig into your latest weather report here on the Zone Heads podcasts, an important message off the rip. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in a home in Central Florida? You need a realtor who not only knows the market, but has experience in protecting your investment. Meet Kevin Crager with LPT Realty, one of the top 25 producing agents in Central Florida. When it comes to real estate, experience matters. Trust Kevin Crager to guide you every step of the way. Call him at 407-702-4635. It's real estate made smart. Call Kevin today. Zach, how are things in your neck of the woods?
Well, we passed the buck when it comes to the rain. We sent that to y'all down the I-4 corridor. It's the only thing that travels freely down that interstate road. It's not traffic-wise, but weather-wise, we get it to y'all pretty quick. So we had a little rain here, but we're good. We're good. Mostly been sunny too, and we had some nice cooler days. Strawberry Fest was popping. If you missed out in Plant City, I feel bad for you. Nelly lit the town on fire. It was so hot in her. No, it was awesome. I love it. I'll tell you, and I said this, anybody who was able to make it to the Strawberry Festival this year in Plant City, by far in my life, not just since I've lived here as an adult, but in my life, the craziest, most packed, busy Strawberry Fest I've ever been to in my life. Like even our side streets were backed up. It was mayhem. You would have thought we had the Super Bowl on James Redmond Parkway Road over here. It was crazy. So yeah, it was nuts. It was a good time though, and things are going well, and we're back at it, man. We got a full month of March here with tons of fun to get into, and I know we got a while before we get to it, but this month, we're usually focused on golf with all these events rolling through. You got March Madness, obviously the brackets, hockey and NBA. You're getting closer to the postseason, right? The push is happening, and baseball starts. And here's the NFL just stealing the thunder again. But again, we'll get to the football news in a little bit.
I love that you brought that back home with the NFL stealing the thunder as I hear thunder cracking outside of my window right now. The update on the stream situation is it looks like we're clear on our Facebook pages, but Twitter seems to be having issues. So not live on Twitter right now, live elsewhere, but maybe you're listening to this on demand and you don't give a damn anyway, and that's okay too. Zoneheads podcast found on YouTube and wherever you download your favorite podcasts. This is now the second week in a row that we've had Strawberry Festival talk. So, and now I hear that this is the biggest Strawberry Festival in quite some time. I'm thinking strawberries are hot right now.
The hottest thing in the market. Step over oranges. We don't want to deal with you. We know it's Florida. All the other fruits, you're just going to have to get shelved for now. So strawberries not only taking over, but they're looking at vegetables like we're coming for you next.
Oh, we got seeds too, Although I don't know, I think is it fruit? Yeah, it's fruit that had seeds. Anyway, let's not dig too deep.
We'll be in so much trouble if we start to go down that rabbit hole. It will not end well for us, bro.
I know for a fact this StreamYard now has these generated AI videos that they curate after you finish recording, and I just know they're gonna hit me with another Strawberry Festival post, and I'm not gonna be able to help myself but to put that back out onto the internet. Before I move off, because we have already spent too much time on the Strawberry Festival yet again, how do you like to consume the strawberries within the festival? Are you going pie? Are you going shortcake? Are we going rhubarb? How are we handling the strawberries?
Man. It's a great question. I think strawberry shortcake shakes. The more S's, the better. Give me S cubed, bro. Give me S. Yeah, they're fantastic. And the beauty is for us is obviously everybody comes into town. They go to the Strawberry Fest. It gets wild. But we got this place right around the corner, Parksdale, and they make some of the best that I've ever had in my life. And I don't have to go all the way into the festival to get them. But obviously this time of year, we're pushing the strawberries even harder than we do throughout the rest of it. So yeah, it's that strawberry shortcake shake that hits for me.
So my weekend entailed something almost as cool as the Strawberry Festival. I was out at the Arnold Palmer Invitational on Sunday. We used that, my wife and I, as our 8-year wedding anniversary celebration. So we dropped the kid off at grandma's house and then went out and had a good time. So walking the course, which was beautiful weather out there. It was actually pretty slow for a Sunday. Now we got there. This isn't some grand statement about the state of affairs with what's going on at Bay Hill. We did get there with Xander Schauffele teed off, and he was the first one to do so at about 9:15. So I'm sure that it picked up in a big way when you got to the afternoon and you actually got to the golfers that mattered for that event. Shout out to Russ Henley for bringing home the win. But we're out there. I'm sipping a Bloody Mary by 9:45. It's just incredible being able to go out there and walk the course, the greens and the fairways. Everything's so pristine. If you've never been out to Bay Hill, the entire course is basically enclosed within the neighborhood. So not only are you gawking at the shots that the golfers are hitting or the way that the greenery is laid out and everything is manicured, over to your left or your right, you also have these gorgeous homes where you have people that have these decked out patios that are able to walk outside of their house and just sit up and watch the 13th green. First of all, you're trying to guess like how much all of these houses cost.
Yeah.
Of course, we're all having the exact same conversation. Yep. And then how much you would want to live there. And I just can't imagine being in that sort of position to be able to go, yeah, I'm just going to go out to the back patio and watch this guy tee off on 6. It's incredible.
Wouldn't you have the itch to like take a club out there yourself on like a random Tuesday night after, maybe a couple beers watching a game? Like, I'm just going to I'm just going to chip and putt a little bit.
I'm sure that happens, Zach. I'm sure that is a regular occurrence.
Yeah. Yeah. I love going to golf tournaments, man. Bay Hill is fantastic. Obviously, we have so many good ones in this state. Working in Jacksonville for the years that I did, we got to cover the Players Championship. You got the PGA headquarters right there. It's so much fun to be there. And it truly is the one sport to me that is so different in person than watching on TV. Not that I don't enjoy watching, especially the majors on television and live, but you can go to one of the lesser tournaments that isn't a major, like Bay Hill, the Valspar here in Tampa Bay. I mentioned the Players up at TPC Sawgrass in St. Augustine, Jacksonville area. But for me, going there, it's just like there's just so much more fun to be had. You can walk around, you can see the shots. There's so much to do, too, outside of just the golf that's happening in front of there. Like, for me, more than anything, Brandon, I just really enjoy being at the golf course for these events. And one thing that I'm sure you appreciate, I certainly do, and I'm doing it even more as I get older, is that they are earlier events. So you can get out at 9 a.m., right? And you can have like a full day before noon. And that's really the only sport where it hits like that.
That's my cup of tea. I love being able to do that. And so I like walking the course. I like experiencing the flow of the tournament, but this is where there's a gap in the experience between watching it live and watching it on TV, where I think that gap is a lot closer in other sports where there's always going to be a difference, but you just can't take in a golf tournament if you actually want to know what's going on. If you're there socializing, I should say also, because I think my co-host in the afternoons, Tyler, this was the first time that he's gone to this event, and I think he's already perfected it. He had the TV broadcast going in his headphones on his phone, so he could look up and watch it, or he just listen to it as he's walking. And so he's following golfers while paying attention to the entire tournament. That's the way to do it. I've been doing this for the last 10 years, and I have yet to perfect this. I love going out there, but when rubber meets the road and I need to know what's going on in the actual tournament, I got to peel off and go home. Also, usually at that point, I'm pretty zapped. So you gotta, it times out energy wise, but there's definitely a gap in the way that you take in the tournament because you're only able to stand in one spot. You've got 2 eyes and 2 legs, if you're lucky. And there's only so much that you can take in the moment.
Yeah, but that being said, I like that element of it because you can hear the roar in different areas. Right?
But you don't know what's going on.
No, you don't. But you're also like likely to be a part of that roar at points too. So like, I think it just adds this like level of excitement again that you're not getting in other sports because everybody's watching the same thing the whole time. When they're there live, it's all center specific. So I like that aspect. I do like the aspect that whether you're a golf fan or not, whether you're just going to socialize or you love sports, like it's so enveloping in terms of letting everybody come in and enjoy it in a different way. I just love it. I love it, man. And
Yep.
again, we're so lucky because we got so many in the state, including obviously Bay Hill, but Valspar and TPC, and it's just a ton of fun, man. Have you? Let me real quick. I know we're going to talk golf all morning here, but have you been lucky enough to be at a tournament where Tiger has played, like actually gotten played?
Yes, actually, the first time I ever went out to Bay Hill, not only was he playing, he won. So I have watched Tiger Woods play some
Wow.
golf, and the galleries that would follow him around were massive. And you get really big groups for guys like Scotty and Rory had some big. I mean, you didn't even need to see them; you could just see the groups, and you could pick out which golfer was where. But it's nothing like Tiger as you would expect. I didn't appreciate it though. Like it was just sort of happening. And like I knew, obviously, I was like, there's Tiger Woods, and he's the greatest golfer ever, arguably. But it being the first time I went there, that was really when I started to get into golf, was just going out to Bay Hill and appreciating the course and the undulation of the fairways and all of that stuff, and how these guys line up their putts. And like I didn't grow up watching golf, so I had to sort of indoctrinate myself into the sport, and that happened over 10 years ago, watching a guy like Tiger Woods. Shout out to our guy Nick, by the way. I love when you guys leave us comments. Hell yeah, man, this is what we need. Glad to see you back. What's up, Nick? All right, before we move on, we're going to spend most of the episode talking NFL, and we're going to wrap with a couple of our bets for tonight or futures. No rules, just right. It's kind of like the Outback when we're laying out our bets. But I saw some news break, in air quotes, because we talked about this on last week's episode of the Zone Heads podcast. So if you're just checking in now, this is the kind of stuff you're missing out on. Zach keyed us in on this idea that perhaps a local businessman in Tampa is interested in buying the Tampa Bay Rays. And now we're getting the reports out there from traditional media that are stating the same thing. So Zach, give me the update and go ahead and take your victory lap, because it seems like you had it first.
Well, and again, like I prefaced our chat last week about the Rays stadium situation and Stu Sternberg, the owner of the team, by pointing out that if you were just following along without any insight, without any like extra, it was, I just got booted there. I'm back. Without any extra info, you could tell that this month was the month where basically Stu signed a check and send some money, or he was going to have to sell the team. Like financially, we were in a place, Brandon, where he was going to have to do one or the other by the end of the month with all this on the table. So it's not crazy that this happened again. People had kind of been talking about how it seemed like the only likely scenario in March. The only difference for us last week on the episode is I had actually been told from a very reliable source that the sale was already happening. Like it wasn't a matter of if he was going to sell, it was that he was selling times, and from the Athletic, so both local and national, covering this now, saying that Stu Sternberg is going to be selling the team. It adds some details that I didn't have, but again, you and I have been talking about it from the Athletic, that there's pressure from the Rob Manfred, MLB, and other owners on Stu to sell the team. You and I talked about that. Like they don't want baseball to leave, and Stu is basically at a place where he has no more business to do. Like the cities, both sides, St. Pete and Tampa, are like, we're good on this guy. Like it's just not in a good place. Like the business isn't getting done with him. So it makes sense that he would have to sell. It's interesting from what I've read between those two sources, though, or those two platforms, I should say. It looks like there's 3 groups potentially that are like quote unquote bidding. From what I understood a week ago when we talked about it, it was 2 local groups, and that one had already kind of basically gotten done. But we'll see. Again, obviously, any kind of whether it's 3 groups, and if it's sold, so we get Wi-Fi going through the weather. But basically, it's like what we said last week in terms of Stu selling and not, as well on its way this month, regardless of how you slice it.
Seems like our Wi-Fi connection is doing its best to hang on for dear life over here. But hey, now you're back. It was like part of. I heard everything that you said, but your face was frozen on my screen. Hopefully, you guys are having the same issues as you're witnessing this live. But what do you think? Well, the timeline for this is the end of the month. Doesn't there have to be some sort of resolution? And what is that resolution come March 31st?
Well, So like the city of St. Pete and the stadium deal that was in place, we talked about it a lot again in previous episodes. Basically, Stu has to write a check for that stadium deal to stay alive by the end of the month. Like he is financially obligated to do so to keep that deal alive. Stu's made it seem in every sense of the word that, or in every sense of the situation, that he's not planning to give them any money. So if that happens, the deal becomes null and void by the end of the month. If that happens, there's no options left. Stu's going to have to sell the team because he doesn't have a stadium deal in place, and they need a new stadium. Like it's you're basically between a rock and a hard place. Like not to say his hand would be forced, but essentially it would. So this month, for him to sell ahead of time, it perhaps gives a new ownership group an opportunity to save that deal. Again, the one thing I pointed out was like, could a group bring the race to Tampa potentially? But all the pitfalls that we've seen still kind of exist there. So you would still need land, you would still need money, you would still need all the things that really are the true reason why Tampa doesn't have baseball and St. Pete does. Those all still exist. So unless whatever group, quote unquote, buys the Rays has a plot of land and a ton of money that they're willing to invest in that. And remember, they're already investing in the team by buying him. So they'd have to buy the team and the land and the stadium. It just sounds like an unlikely scenario, but who knows? It definitely brings that back on the table. And again, more than anything, it would, in essence, it saves the idea that St. Pete, that deal can still live as well. So I'd be interested to hear what would happen on that end. But like Stu's in a place where he's essentially going to have to sell. And now he's getting, as we learned, pressure from Major League Baseball as well.
Oh, the poor man. It's about to net, what, 2 to 3 billion? Is that what you think the Rays will go for? That seems like the going rate for a professional team these days.
Yeah, and I think one of the rumors out there on why he hadn't sold yet was that he was looking for like 7 to 10 million, and it was so overpriced. And
Billion,
it's
you
like
mean, the B, right?
billion. Yeah, billion. So it's like I didn't hear that. I don't know that. Like maybe he threw that out there. Maybe he said that knowing it was going to come down, and if he could get like another billion out of the deal, like he's pretty I don't know. Like that's that's negotiating at that point. Like I don't put a ton of it's just like, and I know we're going to get to NFL. It's just like Myles Garrett negotiate. Like negotiations, you don't know what to believe. And that's why it's called negotiating. Like so anyways, yeah, he's going to make billions. He's already a rich man, and he'll have a lot less of a headache. And I wouldn't be surprised too if it is somewhat of a local group, if that sale includes his ability to not necessarily stay involved in an operating capacity, but like have some stock in the team still.
Well, you mentioned it. We've got about 15 minutes left before we cut you all loose. Well, where do you want to start with this flurry of NFL news? And it's already been hot and heavy, and it's about to get even more so. Tomorrow is when free agency technically opens up. So we're gonna get even more news coming down here soon. But this past weekend, the NFL said, "You all are so cute. We'll take the headlines now."
Yeah, let's start with the one that annoys me the most. I just mentioned it, the Myles Garrett situation up in Cleveland. It's crazy because he's a Hall of Famer. He's a stud, one of, if not the best defensive player in the game. You can make that argument for several years now for as good as he is, the pass rusher for the Browns there and Myles Garrett. But for him to basically be like, I want to trade, I want to go win. I want to, like he had all these things he said, just a cave to a long-term deal for a ton of money. And God bless him. I mean, get paid, right? Like I got no bones with that. I just hate when players are like, look, I just want to go win. And then they cave and they just play in the same place for a ton of money. Like, just be honest. Be like, I'm just trying to, you don't even have to say anything. But I saw reporters like going to bat for him, like, oh, he could go live abroad for a while. He could go do this for a while. And it's like Hassan Reddick, I thought was a good example last year with the Jets. It was a crazy situation, but he was like, I want to get paid. If you don't want to pay me, I'm not going to play. Right? Like I respect that more than a guy who's like, oh, I just want to go win. And then you sign a 3-year deal with the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson situation. So I hate the inauthenticity behind it all.
I would cut him a little bit of slack just because I do think it works as a negotiating ploy. Go back to that word. That is what this time of year really is all about. And if Myles Garrett is saying, well, you guys can't give me the thing I want the most, then the Cleveland Browns, if they want to keep him, don't have a choice but to godfather him. I'm making him an offer he can't refuse. And that's exactly what they did. They made him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. And then Myles Garrett's probably sitting there staring at his bank account, smiling and going, gotcha, because this is what I wanted all along. It is inauthentic, but I think negotiating, unfortunately, when it's done well, is a pretty inauthentic practice. And I like what Myles Garrett, what I like when guys do this, which is you could go other places and chase victories. I like the idea of a guy that is at legend status and will certainly continue to be that, staying in one spot. That when we were growing up, Zach, that was the norm. And now it is a rarity. And so I appreciate it now more than ever. And I would like to think that if I were in these positions, this is the kind of thing that I would be after. Sure, I would want to win. You're a competitor. That is what you desire. But more than anything, one, I want to maximize my dollars in this short shelf life that you get playing professional sports. So whatever that dollar figure is, I'm trying to make the most of it in the shortest period of time that I can. And I would love to be beloved by a single organization. You don't get your statue built outside of a stadium if you play for 4 different teams. And Myles Garrett now has that opportunity to bank the most money possible and to be a Browns legend that has a statue, gets his jersey retired. And, you get the Jeter, the Ripken treatment. I think that there's something special about that. Jeter's not a good example, by the way, because he won championships. But, thinking about the Kirby Puckett with the Minnesota Twins, guys that just simply, they were in it for the long haul.
Yeah, and the one caveat I'll add is like, regardless of how I feel about what he said versus like what happened, ultimately, and I started the conversation with this, he's a Hall of Famer. Like, I don't care. At the end of the day, I'm going to talk about him as one of the best pass rushers we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And when he does get inducted someday into Canton, I hope we're not saying, I just wish he was able to be on a team that won more. But regardless, we'll celebrate him in a way that he deserves. So, yeah, again, this is specific to where we're at right now in time. I don't think it'll matter in a week. I definitely don't think it'll matter by the time the season starts.
I think if it was a different organization, maybe you would feel a different way. And I would be more argumentative towards you if it was an organization that actually deserved to have that sort of loyalty. I think we can both agree that the Browns are not that organization. So taking money to stay with them just simply feels like a cash grab, and not like, why would you want to be affiliated with the Cleveland Browns? So that's the opposite end. This isn't like, Josh Allen is maybe a better example of what we're talking about. The Bills treat their players great. The Bills are a sharp organization. They just happen to never win anything. But that is the kind of place that I think maybe fits more of the criteria of what I'm talking about. I want to be affiliated with this team for the remainder of my career, making the most money possible, and then cross my fingers and hope that we're able to collect wins, because that win would mean more here anyway than 2 or 3 would elsewhere. Oh, Zach is frozen in time. You think about somebody like, Dan Marino would be a good example of that. And that was at a time when I think the Dolphins deserved that sort of loyalty. That is not the case anymore with the way that they operate now. John's checking in. He says, "You're my boy, ZB." Zach he is Elsa over there, completely frozen on the other end. With some of the other news items that we have to chat about, Davante Adams is going to sign a 2-year deal worth $44 million with the LA Rams. That is not official yet because the new league year technically has not begun, but interesting move for the LA Rams that, of course, is financial in its in its developments, because I don't think there's that big of a difference right now between Davante Adams and Cooper Kupp as NFL wide receivers. They're both aging. They're both still excellent at what they do. They could drop off at any point. But Davante Adams was a little bit better last year, but not to the point where you'd say, let's bring in a completely new wide receiver that doesn't know the system like Cooper Kupp does. I think Kupp had a bigger cap hit that he carried with him that they want to move off of. And Davante Adams, because they're structuring a new deal with him, are able to make it a little bit more manageable. I'm guessing that's the case. Of course, my guy Mike Giannetti at SpotTrack.com is the one that you want to follow for all of the really granular details with all of that stuff. Back to the Josh Allen contract that he signed. It was an extension, $330 million, $55 million a year. He went from the 14th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, which is pretty wild to think about, that Let me get that off the screen. Pretty wild to think about that he was 14th in the NFL and then has now bumped up to number 2 behind only Dak Prescott, which behind Deshaun Watson, probably the worst contract in the NFL at the quarterback position, because the Cowboys just simply don't have a team built around him to win. So you are just paying Dak Prescott an exorbitant amount of money, not able to spend money the way that you would like in other areas. And as good as Dak is, and I do think he's a good quarterback, he's not the guy like a Josh Allen that is good enough to just put a team on his back and say, I can guide you to 13 wins in a season. We also saw Aaron Jones get $13 million guaranteed in 2025. It was a 2-year deal, but with running backs that are 30 years old, just look at the guarantees. The length of the contract is completely meaningless. And I think this has as much to do with the fact that Aaron Jones is just a rock solid teammate. He was over 1,000 yards. He scored 7 touchdowns last year, but Aaron Jones is the kind of guy that you want in your locker room. He's a team leader type, and the Minnesota Vikings had so much that went well for them. You don't want to change things too much. They're already going to be without their quarterback in Sam Darnold, and you usher in somebody like J.J. McCarthy. You need guys around him, veteran presence that have maturity and leadership qualities. And so I think Aaron Jones is getting paid for that as much as anything else. The Steelers made a trade for DK Metcalf. Seattle gets a 2025 second and a pick swap. They go from the 7th to the 6th round. That part is sort of inconsequential. But this is where NFL trades, everything is so financially based because it really doesn't make any sense on the surface when you look at it. Deebo Samuel gets traded for a 5th round pick to the Washington Commanders, and DK Metcalf goes for a 2nd. Does anybody listening to this think that DK Metcalf is a better football player than Deebo Samuel? Hell no. Zach is back, by the way. I'm breaking down the bullet points of NFL free agency. The fact that, first of all, are you officially back, or is this just a still image of Zach Blobner on my screen?
I think I'm back.
Back.
We're definitely having some connectivity issues though today. I'm not sure if it's the weather or if it's the NFL. I'm back-ish, it seems.
I think it's those big buyers in Tampa that have said, enough with you, Zach Blobner, we're going to do away with your internet. But I was just talking about how absurd it is. And all of this is financially based. But when you look at, I think when fans look at this on the surface, it's hard to wrap your head around it. The Steelers trade for DK Metcalf. Seattle gets a 2nd round pick and a pick swap. Deebo Samuel gets traded to Washington for a 5th round pick. Does anybody in the world think that DK Metcalf is a better football player than Deebo Samuel? And they're not that different age-wise. Injuries, yes, Deebo deals with those, but Deebo significantly improves your offense more than DK Metcalf does, in my opinion. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I think on paper you're right. I think on paper that's accurate. You know, obviously there's a lot more context to it. It's more nuanced because the Steelers have been swinging and missing for years now on star receivers, and they're so starved when it comes to playmakers on offense, Brandon, that it was a little bit more of a desperate move with DK. But I think that there is some desperation there that's warranted when it comes to organization. Clearly, they still got to figure out who's throwing DK the ball, which is the bigger issue. But this is a team with playmakers all over the field on defense and essentially none on offense besides George Pickens. We saw once Pickens went down that they didn't have anybody. So I think the Steelers made it a little bit more of a desperate play. I think the 2nd versus the 5th is hard to kind of stomach. But I also wouldn't be surprised if DK plays more than Deebo the rest of his career because, again, we've seen the durability or lack thereof with Samuel.
That is such an odd pairing for the Steelers at wide receiver that you have DK Metcalf and George Pickens. These are 2 straight line dinosaur X receivers that you have. I don't think putting those 2 on the field together is a smart move because there's not enough versatility. And maybe somebody that runs an offense in the NFL would smack me upside the head and say, you're completely wrong. To me, this indicates that they want to move off of George Pickens because they are so similar in their styles And you just don't see a lot of offenses that operate that way with two guys that basically just want to run straight and fast. It's very 1990s of them.
It is. It is. I'm trying to see if I want to hold on here with this internet. I might switch to the phone and see if that works better, man, because we got all this NFL news rolling. I feel like I'm missing out. Let me try to switch. Hold tight.
Yeah, go ahead. So Geno Smith also back with a former coach of his, Pete Carroll, now in Las Vegas. I think that right there tells you why they would make a move for Geno Smith. I mean, is this going to be what changes your outlook on potential Super Bowl bid for the Las Vegas Raiders? No, but the Raiders are in a position right now where they just simply need to reestablish some respectability, consistency. And when you bring in a guy like Pete Carroll, he's going to help with that. Now he needs a quarterback that can help you get there. So if you're not going to be in a position to draft the next guy, you just need somebody in this league that can keep you afloat, that can provide that sort of the winning mentality. And so and that's why you see when they traded for Geno Smith, the Raiders' odds to win a Super Bowl changed 0%. They went from 100-1 to 100-1 after trading for Geno Smith. But I think this is more about creating organizational respectability moving forward and having Pete with somebody that he's comfortable with. Zach, you're looking crisper than before. Look at that. Look at the iPhones bringing it tonight.
I guess so, man. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't understand it, but that's a chat for you and I at a different point. The QB carousel is insane to me right now. And I know you're talking a little bit about Geno, and obviously now, you have Sam Darnold up in the air. You're seeing Aaron Rodgers talking to teams. Like, it's just such a weird world where I don't know who's going to fit where and what's going to work, Brandon. I do feel like unless you have a Josh Allen, back to the Bills kind of locking him up for life, unless you have a guy that's a bona fide star and you're 100% sure that he's going to be a guy that you can not only count on next year, but like every season moving forward until they're, basically not a good player anymore. All these other guys to me are equally as big of a gamble. Like, I just don't know. I don't know if there's any of them that I trust right now. And that includes Sam Darnold after 1 year. You look at what obviously Baker Mayfield's been doing in Tampa Bay, and like that's going well. But like, all these guys are kind of in a similar tier, but for different reasons. I don't know if I trust any of these guys, whether is Geno in Vegas any better than a team drafting like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders and like kind of letting them ride? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so much.
Yeah, I don't think the Raiders are at a point right now where they want to take that shot on this is them saying either we're not in a position to draft that player or we don't want them even if we had the opportunity. We're not going to take a swing on a rookie quarterback that we have to tie ourselves to for the next 3 years if we don't truly believe in them. And I think you're going to see a few teams up in that top 10 that make those sort of business decisions. The Raiders are at a point right now where they just need to create a winning culture in the locker room. I don't think that's going to make fans go, well, where can I sign up for season tickets now? But you have to do that. You have to. It's hard to go from 0 to 100 in the NFL. More realistically, you have to kind of just pick yourself up piece by piece. The Raiders have hit rock bottom, and they need to start layering in that foundation. And part of that is just having a veteran quarterback that is steady and can win you a few games, establish that culture, and then when you feel like the roster is ready, really take that home run swing with a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously it's not black or white, right? In terms of getting the right quarterback, it's so hard. It's even when you nail it, you still have so much else to figure out. It's just, I mean, that's what makes the NFL so tough and such a hard league, just in general. I mean, you look at a team like Washington. You were talking about Debo. Now with Jaden Daniels, like they can move pretty freely this offseason and moving forward. Like they know they're building around him. Even Caleb Williams, who didn't play as well last year as a rookie, like the Bears are still moving in that direction where they're like, we're just building around this guy. And I'm just talking about the rookies, right? Bo Nix, you can say the same thing about. I don't know if Atlanta's there or Michael Penix Jr., but they already have a bunch of talent on that team.
Yeah.
And that's guys that are young that they're building around. The Bucs obviously in a different situation here in Tampa, but essentially they're in this Baker Mayfield window where Levante David's coming back. He's staving off retirement again for a year. Chris Godwin's, they're looking to try to have him back, but they drafted dudes like Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving. You're trying to build around these QBs. So whether it's a middle tier guy that like, kind of has had a rebirth, whether it's a rookie, whether it's the established 10 that, we know are towards the top of the charts, you're just looking for a guy where you can be like, okay, we don't have to worry about quarterback because we're riding with him. And look, maybe Geno's that for the Raiders. He certainly was for Seattle the last few seasons. It does make life a lot easier in terms of everything else you do, though. And again, that doesn't mean you have to have the best or even a top quarterback in the league, but just a guy that's reliable. And I think that's why Sam Darnold's becoming so coveted this offseason, because people are like, regardless of where you want to put him or what you think he'll be able to do, he's a guy that is going to come in and work hard and help this football team, whatever it is, win. And you can focus on all the other positions.
And it's really not that different from what the Bucs decided to do after Tom Brady and bringing in Baker Mayfield. That was them just saying, we don't want to sink to the bottom. Let's get somebody that can help us stay afloat. It turns out to have worked exceedingly well. The Minnesota Vikings just did that. That was a little bit different because they also drafted a quarterback, and that quarterback got hurt. So we don't know what direction they would have gone in had McCarthy not injured his knee. But Sam Darnold allowed them to just say, hey, let's just plug in somebody that we know isn't going to be completely awful and then fill in the gaps elsewhere. But then you mentioned Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams as the opposite ends. Like, let's go get the quarterback first, and then we'll build out around him. There's a lot of, there's 22 guys out there on a football field. There's more than one way to skin the cat. And this is, I mean, the Raiders aren't going to be good next year, so you might as well just not be an embarrassment. And I think Geno helps you with that. And let's be honest, Pete Carroll, this is a fraternity, a brotherhood, if you will. And Pete Carroll, knowing Geno Smith and feeling comfortable with him, has to be a huge part of this equation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think that applies in a lot of ways. We just saw Bobby Wagner re-sign with Washington, but I think Dan Quinn going there last year, like that was an easy connection, right? Those guys know each other pretty well. So you see this all the time on teams. I'd be interested, a squad that we haven't talked about much is Jacksonville. What the Jags are doing up in North Florida. I mean, obviously the Liam Cohen mess was just that, but I just don't know what this team's going to look like next year. I don't know what direction they're going to go. I mean, again, I think Liam's a very smart offensive mind. But man, I don't know. I don't know what to feel about that team.
Sometimes you got to take 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward. James Gladstone is the new young up and coming. He was a scout strategist for the Rams. He has come in and he looks like Dexter to me, and he's kind of acting like it. He's taking the axe to the roster. They went through and cut, I think, a quarter of the guys that were on the team. And some of it is about cost-cutting measures. Some of it is just, I think he looked and said, we got to get better in certain areas. And so that's exactly what they did. Zach, let's wrap as we do with our Zone Heads bets. Ready to make some cash. And while we got you, I don't want you dropping off on me again. We got to make some money for the people. I'm looking at a pair in the NBA tonight, so I'm not looking too far ahead. I have been taking a bath these last few days on, I'm losing by points, half a point. It's been one of those, but you know what it means? The account's not any better for it, but I'm seeing things clearly. So there is a little bit of confidence to be had in losing in small margins. Got a couple that I'm eyeing for tonight. Magic Rockets under 213. A couple of those try-hard teams in the NBA, young and hungry with inadequate offenses. I kind of had my eye on taking whatever the number was going to be, 213, 213 and a half. Hopefully you can still get it there. And then I like the Nuggets, +9 against OKC. They played on national TV yesterday. It's a rare back-to-back for the same teams against the same teams, and OKC smacked them up. So as long as Jokic plays, we should be getting a really good number here. It's actually gone up by 1.5 points from where it was yesterday. I think that's just market overcorrection, so we will buy the dip here, Zach.
I like that. See, you're talking about something that's happening more recently. I'm looking ahead. I don't know why I just got this fire to really look into AL and NL Rookie of the Year odds. I know we already talked a little bit about MLB futures, but for me, I start to look at these and these odds. It's just so tough to call. And I think maybe a guy like Wyatt Langford and just Paul Skeens and how much faster the better MLB players from college or from prep or making the jump into the pros. I think we got to start taking these college players seriously that are superstars and are basically on an MLB team the following year. And again, bias here with the Florida Gators, but Jack Caglione, Cags as we call him, plus 5,000 as the AL Rookie of the Year with Kansas City. And just Jason Dominguez is the favorite with the Yankees. They call him the Martian. Like, he looks like a superstar. Don't get me wrong. And it's not to say that he isn't, understandably why he's the favorite. But you talk about value and odds and everything. Cags is crushing homers right now in spring training. He was a guy that didn't know if he'd make the roster, and now you got a lot of people that write columns on this type of thing every day, thinking this is a guy that might actually be able to help the Royals in 2025. So, I mean, it's still a long shot. I wouldn't call it a lock, but at plus 5,000, I really like the odds on that. And just in general, again, I think we have to start taking college players that are balling out on a baseball level from there into the pros more seriously, because we're starting to see them get opportunities faster than we ever have in the history of the game.
Plus 5,000. That's 50 to 1. I believe.
You got me doing math here, bro.
Yeah, you just move the decimal. You just move the decimal over 2 zeros. That's 50 to 1. I just want to make sure. Because if it was any longer than that, they're all good ideas at that point. You put $1, make 500. No, that's not how it works here. $1 makes you 50 if you want to tail Zach on that. That is a wrap for this week's edition of the Zone Heads podcast, presented by Kevin Crager with LPT Realty. When it comes to real estate, experience matters. Trust Kevin Crager to guide you every step of the way. Call him at 407-702-4635. Be sure to subscribe to this channel that you are watching or listening to right now, and we will be back at it with another episode next week. Brackets will be out. Brackets will be filled out, and we will talk about those on the Zone Heads podcast.